What's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to talk about the title, What is an Angel? Now, if you have been paying attention to class, which stands for Creativity, Logic, Art, Science, and Spirituality, we just wrapped up on science with the last lesson in the lecture series being the science of storytelling, not the art of storytelling, but the science. And we broke down some psychological triggers and sociological triggers that occur in those fields when it comes to not only storytelling, but business and everything else with that endeavor. So let's get into the title, What is an Angel? Well, first you have to understand the content within the context in which it's being presented. So I'm going to give you a story based upon fact, and for you fact checkers out there that have access to history or files, you could probably verify this. So during the time of COVID, right around that time, I had a marketing agency and I was about to help a friend of mine who started a security company named Curtis with some things. Now, when it comes to the definition of an angel in business, you have angel investors, but they don't always add the investor title to the end of it. They just say they're an angel. But because it's in the context of business, right, those that are in business that were studious would understand what a business angel investor is. If you're into spirituality, well, then that means something else. But the definition of an angel from a militaristic standpoint could mean something else as well. And then, of course, by definition, it could also mean a highly enlightened or intelligent individual. And for those of you that don't believe me, I will go ahead and leave the ChatGPT link down below within the description for those of you that are crazy out there, that don't understand this, that are lazy, that like to jump to conclusions, sign waivers or whatever for punishments to be handed out without actually doing your fucking research. So I did it for you. So before, anybody else wants to say anything, let me get into the story. So apparently there was a time where I tried to explain something to a child and they're like, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name's Michael." And they're like, "Michael? How do you spell it?" I said, "Michael, like Michael, the angel in the Bible, like spelt the same way." Right? I didn't say any other book, right? Because it's spelled Michael. But if you go to different countries, Michael may be pronounced or enunciated as Michelle, right? Or Mika, so on and so forth, or Mikael, so on and so forth. But I didn't say that, did I? No, it was a analogy, a metaphor, right? In order to get someone to understand how I spelled my name. Now, mind you, I had a marketing business, and when my friend Curtis actually came to visit me at Sky House, he said something very interesting to me. He said, "You can't call yourself an angel." Well, Curtis, let's look at some facts, right? Because if angel means highly intelligent individual or enlightened person, and information is the most valuable form of currency, normally with angel investors within business, they have one or two or a couple things. They have resources, they have capital, they also have intelligence, right? So they have three things, if not more, that can assist you in becoming a successful business, and you do not have to pay them back, right? That is the purpose of an angel investor. They give you a small loan, access to resources, information, etc., and you do not have to pay them back. So for someone to tell me that I couldn't state something just told me not only were they under the influence of someone else's misuse of the language or the content that was being distributed, but they were under false pretenses for you judges out there that like to hop on a bandwagon. So let's get into it, right? So after we had that conversation, it was around the time of COVID, right? And this is where the birth of class came out, because they were talking about the coronavirus and everything else. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so interesting because it's going to affect the stock price. Lo and behold, the Corona stock price got affected because people thought that the Corona beer was giving them the virus. So stock price fell and they changed the name to COVID. I mean, think about that, right? Even the masses got it incorrect, right? So because of that, there was an effect on the stock market and everything else. And I started to get slightly upset because I felt as though people weren't thinking or critically thinking anymore from a creative and logical standpoint. And I remember standing in front of a camera in my studio in Sky House, which is now known as the Asher, down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I wrote the acronym CLASS in different colors, like the rainbow flag. And I stood in front of it. And I remember recording it in hopes that somebody would see it one day. And I said, if you continue, and I pointed to the board. I said, if you continue with your BS, I will start teaching and I will open my mouth. And then, of course, certain things started happening and people got upset. Now, mind you, this was the time where Trump was in office. And when he sweared in the first time, he put his hand on a stack of books. And I'll get to that in a second. Now, the second time he did not, but we were going through stuff and there was a lot of things that were going on. And so I felt as though people were not only just lost as lost boys and children are, or lost boys and girls are normally are, because, well, their instructors have failed to educate them properly in order to understand what is being told to them when something is being said to them, right? And then I remember I said something out loud and I screamed it, and then my phone got triggered and it popped up. It was so weird. It kind of did it on its own, and it jumped to the application LinkedIn and a video popped up and it was like, we don't want to say that, which was very interesting, right? It was almost like a hacker got into my phone trying to tell me something, right? But I was trying to respond in kind. So let's get into some of the terms or the ways that this can be used or utilized, right? Because, well, if you believe in heaven and hell, you are right? If you believe something is good or bad, you are right? And if you believe in angels, then you should understand that angels are everywhere, whether in heaven or hell. If you don't believe me, go to California and go ask, where are the hell's angels, right? Because I guess there are angels in hell, just like there are demons and devils there as well, right? Everybody gets prosecuted. Everybody ends up in a prison or jail, so on and so forth. And what happens when you break the law? You go to jail or prison. And in the spiritual context, that would be hell, not heaven, yes? But in heaven, there is angels. Now, in the business, you have angels, right? You have Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk is known as an angel investor. And if you go back through his content, he discusses how he wanted to be an angel investor at one point. And there are many others, right? You have TV shows like Shark Tank, but those are not angels. Those are sharks. You have Dragon's Den. That's something else, but they're referred to as dragons. I guess people are not going to want them to say the word dragon anymore, or shark, God forbid. But, I mean, think about it. If angels are everywhere, then the other side is everywhere as well. But these are just terms or code names or labels that people get put or attached to themselves. Yes or yes. Similar to the mental health field, right? And it was during this time that, because I stated at the VA clinic that I believed in God, that they wanted to go ahead and, well, give me some type of mental health disorder. Well, let's get into that, because, well, if you believe in God and they think that if you believe in God, you should deserve a mental health disorder, what scam are they trying to pull now, right? Because there are a lot of people that believe in God, which means what? The churches in America are using that as a filtering system in order to what? Play in the gray and make money while people think something is good, but not understanding the repercussions that might come from it, right? Oh, I'm going to confess in private, knowing that you're being listened to, right? Oh, I'm going to tell something to somebody because I need to get it off my chest, etc. And then they go and snitch on you for a paycheck, just like what was happening during COVID. They wanted to snitch on people that weren't getting the vaccination. And so because people needed money, so on and so forth, right? They need cash, right? They need money, right? So they would snitch on people in order to keep their salary or to make an extra dollar or buck and say, ooh, 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 like little children snitching on each other. This person didn't take the shot. This person has the cooties, etc. Can I get my $150? But that's how you build a society and bring it together? No, that's how you divide one. So let's continue. Why is it that in spiritual books, angels say, do not fear? See, if angels practice, well, from a militaristic standpoint, the Geneva Convention, as long as you don't touch them, they won't touch you. But then if you utilize other people like chess pieces to touch them, is that cheating, right? Think about it. They're there to help no matter what side they're on. The label, the clue is in the title. Now, in certain books, right, because they talk about stuff, but let's talk about movies now, right? If it's so bad to say the word angel, then why would you come out with the movie Shift or Passion of Christ and all these other things if that's bad as well, right? Why don't you lock up the people that went and produced that shit? Oh, you don't because it makes money, right? Paper, right? What's money made out of? Paper, cotton, a collaboration, a collective of different materials that has fucking words written on it. In something we trust, but clearly you cannot utilize certain language around people because they get butthurt. Now, remind you, in the past lessons, I discussed that I would be presenting myself in a different fashion or manner. And because this is media, I have to come off with a different pitch or tone, right? So, think about it. In spiritual books, it says that God is looking for someone after his own heart, right? Well, what does the church protect? It's supposed to be heart, right? Well, if the churches in America, if that was an acronym, it would be CIA, so on and so forth, etc. Churches in America that are supposed to protect the heart, it would give precedent to the movie Heart of Stone, and I'll let you guys watch that movie on Netflix. But then we have Mossad, right? And then you have Andrew Bustamante, whose picture's all over Facebook. And in the book, it says that there will be a book of names. Ironically, there's Facebook, which not only has names, but a face to match with it. So let's talk about that for a second, since people think they could get away with everything. All right. Now, what about Mossad, right? Because Mossad is like saying, was Moses sad, right? Or Mo was sad. Why? Because he couldn't go to the promised land. Now, that may come off as sarcastic to some, but if you go to the Charlotte Renaissance Festival or any Renaissance Festival, they have something known as the Nunny Nunnies, right? They're a stand-up comedy group duo that dresses up as nuns, and they'll say jokes and things like that based off the Bible, and they'll say, well, why was Cain and Abel this, that, and the third? So I always say that, well, Cain killed Abel because he wasn't mentally stable, right? And then, of course, they say, why was Abel this? And they say because he wasn't able. And then they have the loaves and fish and how they would sell them in the future and all these other things. But to backtrack a little bit with this thing, right? If the truth is said in jest, and if you want to hide something, you hide it in plain sight. This was from the movie The Librarian that I watched a long time ago. Then what is in plain sight could also be something else, could it not? For in scripture it dictates, or at least pastors, priests, and so on and so forth, clergy members understand the quote or comment that be careful what you say in certain environments or rooms, for you do not know that you might also be sitting in the presence of an angel. What does that mean? A highly intelligent person? An enlightened person for anybody that is enlightened out there? Does that mean something else? Does that mean a investor, right? You're talking about a business idea, someone that's maybe retired or whatever that has the knowledge, resources, network, and access, maybe not capital, that can assist you, could be known as an angel investor because information is the most valuable form of currency. Right? And with information, the right information, think about it, you can make earth-shattering amounts of money if you know a stock price is going to go up, go down, etc. You can play with options, bet against the stock, buy a put, a call, use an iron condor, use a covered call. These are all financial terms. But is someone going to say that I can't utilize these terms because why? I don't have a degree, or you didn't read the book. No, Maybe you should read more books. This is why I put the link down below from ChatGPT giving definitions and explanations as to the many different ways that the word angel itself could be used, so that some of you out there can understand that you need to slow down instead of telling people to slow down, and listen to understand instead of listening to respond, which was said by Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Or 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Which one is it? Did you slow down, or did you just try to respond and say, that's not the name of the title? Aha, I got you, student. Because you tried to correct me, I need to now educate you, right? Because you did not present anything that would back up what you were stating. Because there's also a series within Stephen Covey, and I'm pretty sure the effectiveness is in there, if that's part of the title. But then you have Peter Drucker, the habits, or the effective executive, right? It's not efficient executive, the effective executive by Peter Drucker. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Then you have The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. But I guess you can't go to a freaking library or go online, download some PDFs, and educate yourself before you open your mouth to speak and try to dictate something to someone based upon First Amendment rights known as freedom of speech. Because without the word, there would be nothing created. Do you understand me now? So, if you guys got anything out of this lesson, please, by all means, smash that like button down below. Don't forget to follow me. And this was part of homework for those of you that are in the science portion of class, trying to understand what is being said. Please do your homework. Please educate yourself. You have large language models, otherwise referred to as AI, and everything else put right in front of your face, illuminated on screen. So if you don't understand what's presented right in front of your face, maybe you need to see something more personal, something more that's in your reality, something that fits your spectrum of vision, because you lack understanding and you cannot use your ears. So I hope you guys understand and got to certain points in here, and we'll utilize those points in the future. See, everybody wants to be cool, right? So business will use military terms sometimes in order to sound cool, feel cool, etc. There was a guy named Richard Reyes who had a cancer foundation, all this other stuff, nonprofit, etc. And, obviously, if it's a non-for-profit, then you're not paying taxes. And there's a lot of churches out there that are at the not-for-profit status, which means they don't have to pay tax. So what are they doing with the money? And are they trying to make money, or are they just trying to play like a child does as a scientist, to understand certain things without trying to reap the consequences or avoid the consequences, because they're able to play on both sides of the fence because they cater to all. Think about that, right? Because just as the justice system and judges wear black and white, so do priests. But if you mix those colors together, well, art would teach you that you get the color gray. And when you play in the gray, it gets tricky, right? Because people now know you're playing both sides. So what game are you playing? What words are you understanding? And what bullshit are you peddling in order to maintain power and control in the matrix system that was built? Now, think about this. If you watch Andrew Bustamante, he mentions Sad Rat. So is he with CIA or Mossad? Because remember, Moses was sad that he couldn't go to the promised land. Oh, that's great. So Israelis, Mossad, right? That's I'm pretty sure Jewish, right? And Moses led the people out through the river, etc. But he couldn't go to the promised land and all this. So Mo was sad. But Michael contested for the body of Moses and everything else. Who knows for what? Right? But that's in spiritual scripture, right? And then, of course, I gave the explanation to as well. If you want to, play with acronyms, you could put CIA, Churches in America, right? which means they're everywhere, right? How many churches? You got churches and steeples, people. Think about it. Where did that line come from? Since you're so good at fact checking and people have files on everything, please, by all means, check out the legitimacy of not only this, but the link down below. Look at the definitions, ask some questions, and then come back to me with something that I don't know already. Till next time, my friends, take care. Hope you enjoyed this homework portion of class for the people within science, or whom are scientists, which would fall underneath both science, technology, or let's just say the STEM fields. For those of you who like to play with the invisible, you fall in there as well, because psychology is a science. So is sociology, which is part of the humanities, which you can understand if you study the liberal arts. So I will talk to you later, my friends. Till next time. Mwah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.